Love doesn't scare them. It's hope that sends them into panic. Have you ever been with someone who pulled away the closer you got? Someone who once looked at you like you were their entire world, and then, overnight, they turned cold, distant, as if you never existed? It wasn't in your head, and it's not because you weren't enough. The avoidant doesn't leave because they feel nothing. They leave because they feel too much. And for them, intimacy isn't a place of healing, it's a battlefield of emotions, echoing the wounds they were left alone to survive. In the avoidant's internal world, to love someone isn't to move closer, it's to walk to the edge of a cliff, a place where they must choose, let someone in, or disappear to protect themselves. The more kind, sincere, and loving you are, the more terrifying you become to them, because your warmth threatens to melt a fortress of ice they spent an entire childhood building. And the scariest part for them isn't being alone. It's this: if they finally melt, who will catch them when they can no longer freeze again? The moment the spark of emotion begins to flicker in a relationship, they gently reach for the release valve, wanting to extinguish any remaining warmth before it can flare into a roaring flame, because deep down they believe fire will scorch them, leave them burned, destroy the self they have painstakingly built with ice. They withdraw when feelings grow intense, like a child fleeing a dark room, instinctively gathering whatever fragments of solace isolation provides, choosing the empty space filled with echoes of loneliness to shield the pieces of their soul still healing. They draw close, then suddenly pull away, one step forward, two steps back, because every step towards someone is an unspoken vow to themselves. If I let someone in too far, I won't know how to close the door again. They smile and talk, sharing tiny anecdotes about yesterday, a book they're reading, a long-ago memory. And yet if someone dares to pry into the layers of frozen ice encasing their heart, they shut down the flow with a simple gesture, silence, a subject change, or a belated farewell without explanation. Those lovely fragments of sharing are like snowflakes falling on a frozen field, beautiful to watch, momentarily delightful, but never warm enough to melt the ice. Outwardly, they present themselves as self-sufficient, masking every hint of emotional tremor behind a facade of stoic indifference, a porcelain smile, while inside, the hunger for connection grows heavier, more agonizing, like an open wound that never receives antiseptic. They say, "I'm fine," with eyes that have never told the truth, initiating conversations with polite inquiries, only to end them with a lingering silence that leaves the other person wondering, what did I do wrong? When the real answer is, you did nothing wrong. They are simply terrified of feeling understood and hurt at the same time. They retreat before love can even take root, because root growth means opening the door, allowing vulnerability in and for them. Opening that door means risking the belief that love is a double-edged sword that might slice open my heart beneath this layer of ice I thought was unbreakable. They meticulously time each moment, when to halt, when to stay silent, when to step away just enough that the partner pivots to pull them back, an invisible cord stretching the other's heart, letting them graze only the last fingertip of the edge, then slackening so everything falls into void again. They become accustomed to living almost there, but not quite, only to one day wonder why they can't fully experience joy, why they always feel alone among a crowd. In their eyes, closeness is a risk, happiness a trap, and withdrawal the only act that grants them safety, even if that safety dooms whatever intact part of their spirit to remain frozen forever. This is the avoidance behavior, a chain of automatic, unconscious decisions that both prevent old wounds from reopening and inflict a new kind of loneliness, nameless, formless, haunting, and enigmatic. Avoidants do not lack the capacity to love. They love, but they are terrified. For them, intimacy is not a sanctuary. It is a sentence that drags them back to their darkest memories. Each time someone touches the icy shell around their heart, the past rushes in. The cries in the night when they were abandoned, broken promises, judgmental gazes, and a feeling of inescapable solitude. They equate closeness with the risk of being hurt, an alarm signal their nervous system has labeled as a threat to survival. When their heart starts pounding, the brain's stress response centers immediately trigger the fight or flight mechanism. Their body interprets every sign of intimacy as an emergency warning. In their mind, trauma acts like a cold commander, establishing an icy kingdom, a territory of silence, avoidance, and isolation. Any thought of sharing emotions risks cracking the fragile ice layer that shields their unhealed wounds. They were never taught safe emotional regulation, how to breathe, process thoughts, and cultivate a sense of calm. Instead, avoidance becomes an invisible armor, helping them appear safe, while inside, tension and loneliness intensify. Because they lack skills to identify and process emotions, avoidance reflexively withdraw as soon as the bond begins to form. They steer clear of deep conversations about their inner needs, fearing vulnerability. They avoid discussing their past, terrified of reopening old wounds. They remain silent at any hint of rejection or judgment. They need time to discern whether the feeling is a real danger or merely a ghost from the past. In the meantime, they build thick walls of ice to prevent their soul from melting. However, this lack of self-awareness and emotional literacy only deepens their entrapment in their frozen realm. Every act of avoidance cuts off another opportunity to learn how to feel safe. Every moment of silence reaffirms that fear still triumphs over reason. For them to step beyond the belief that love is a threat, they require a sufficiently safe space, one where sharing does not mean abandonment and opening up does not mean judgment. Only when the winter ecosystem in their mind begins to thaw through patience and compassionate presence can avoidance start to learn emotional regulation, to trust that sharing does not equate to suffering, and to believe that life can be full of love without always paying the price of past pain. After decoding the deep psychological drivers behind an avoidance withdrawal and intimacy avoidance behaviors, we arrive at a crucial question. Why do they always return even though every step forward forces them to wrestle with old wounds? Let's flip our perspective and recognize that their flight isn't born of indifference, but of an unquenchable longing for connection. Deep inside, the avoidant always carries an internal compass pointing toward connection. No matter how far they run or how many icy walls they build, they still crave to be loved, understood, and finally to melt. Every step away is not the final chapter, but a cycle returning to an inner flame that never truly extinguished. They may retreat when fear overwhelms them, but that very fear pulls them right back to hope, the hope that this time their fortress of ice won't collapse, that their old wounds will no longer bleed. Each reappearance is like winter inching toward the peak of thaw, an unstoppable natural law of the heart. They don't come back because they've fully healed, but because they cannot deny the part of themselves roaring inside for love. That longing is so powerful that their nervous system momentarily silences the alarms, allowing one more opportunity for new growth. The avoidance repetitive return reveals this truth. Even though they are afraid, they need love more than anything else. Imagine an ancient cedar standing in a frozen landscape. Each winter, its needles wither and branches droop beneath the frost. Yet when spring arrives and snow melts, life sprouts again from within the trunk. The avoidant is no different. After countless cycles of isolation and fear, when touched with sincerity and patience, they cannot help but bud again. They return not only because of pain, but to reaffirm their belief in at least one safe place where their heart can finally thaw. Their return is not a sign of weakness, but proof of extraordinary inner strength. They recognize that maintaining an icy shell consumes far more energy than allowing themselves to feel, yet they only make that choice when they realize fleeing forever never healed the wound. Their heart carries a passport to connection, one they guard closely, revealing it only when they feel safe enough to try again. Just as winter cannot escape spring, the avoidant cannot resist the fierce life force within forever. They flee not to give up, but to protect themselves until they find the safest way to accept a new chance. And when they do return, hope and love reign supreme, opening a new chapter, a fresh opportunity for both partners to create a warm inner ecosystem where love is no longer a threat, but a powerful force drawing them together. After uncovering why they always return, driven by an unquenchable compass of connection, let us embark on the healing journey where their inner ice begins to melt step by step, revealing new life. The melting process is not an explosion, but like spring quietly seeping into every crack, As soft sunlight penetrates the snow cover and warm breezes carry gentle heat into hidden recesses, fragile ice begins to fracture. Similarly, an avoidance heart doesn't thaw in a single moment. It requires persistent beams of patience, understanding, and presence. First, they must learn to stay with their emotions rather than flee. Whenever their heartbeat soars at the prospect of a deep conversation, they once reflexively withdrew, as if dialogue were a weapon striking old wounds. But to melt, they must pause, breathe, and observe feelings of fear, anger, or sorrow, not to deny them, but to acknowledge their existence and let them pass. Next, they learn that loving doesn't mean losing oneself. Within their icy fortress, they believed that opening up would consume their identity. Now, gradually, they discover that setting boundaries does not hinder love, but safeguards them in the process of vulnerability. Defining where to share, when to pause, and when to rest becomes the map guiding them through safe emotional territory. Healing does not demand perfection. The avoidant once thought that unless they orchestrated every scenario to protect their heart, they would suffer brutal injury. But they come to realize that genuine presence, even with stumbles, is far more valuable than a flawless ice wall. A single moment of choosing to stay when the heart trembles, a willingness to speak when the lips are parched, this is stepping into one's inner spring. Most importantly, they recognize that emotional winter is no longer a refuge, but a prison. In the frozen darkness, they believed they were safe. Yet the ice had trapped them in half-life, unable to feel joy, too fearful to dream of the future. As the ice melts, they reclaim the capacity to dream, rediscover safety in the warmth of connection, and begin writing a new story where love and boundaries coexist. The melting journey of a frozen heart is not just the avoidance alone. It is a path for anyone who has built protective walls after trauma. It reminds us that only by facing our fears, embracing emotions, and allowing ourselves to be touched can we truly enter the spring of our own lives. As the inner ice begins to crack, revealing the first glimmers of healing hope, we can appreciate the formidable structure the avoidant has painstakingly built. Yet it is precisely at this moment that the magic of love seeps through the tiniest fissures, transforming an icy fortress into a palace of light. In the avoidance inner world, the heart is a fortress, a meticulously designed edifice with glacial walls, a drawbridge under precise control, and watchtowers surveying every approach. The fortress's exterior can be elegant, its facade adorned with intricate carvings, yet no one is permitted to venture deep inside. Each wall of ice is a layer of defense against pain, each snow-laden brick a reminder. Do not come closer, or you will pay the price. They learn to build these walls by refusing to name their feelings, by silencing their hearts, and by creating just enough distance to protect unhealed wounds. The drawbridge is their way of regulating relationships. They lower it for a brief moment of closeness, then raise it. The instant warmth begins to penetrate the ice. Sometimes they allow a few strangers into the outer courtyard, but no one may enter the main chamber where their true self and hidden dreams reside. However, in this well-fortified system, they forgot one crucial thing. The fortress's owner has also misplaced the key to their own gates. The prolonged cold and tension have erased their memory of how to face emotion. They become prisoners within their own castle, lost among corridors that mirror a distorted, alien sense of self. And here lies the secret of true love. It doesn't need to charge in like an invading army. It simply leaks through the smallest cracks. Each drop of goodwill, every patient question, every respectful glance, these are like the first gentle rays of spring sunlight, seeping through snow to melt each block of ice. A gentle touch or a heartfelt inquiry is enough to open a tiny crevice, allowing love to trickle in like precious drops of water. When these fissures appear, the fortress's owner has a choice: continue to lock down or open a little more. Each time they lower the drawbridge a bit further, they give love a chance and themselves an opportunity to heal. Gradually, the ice will fully melt, revealing warm, light-filled chambers, spaces where they can live fully with emotion and trust without boundaries. No matter how intricate and sturdy the architecture of an avoidance heart may be, it cannot withstand the power of patience and sincerity forever. True love is like a skilled craftsman, using the tools of compassion and calmness to slowly rebuild, transforming a frozen fortress into a castle of light where everyone can enter and exit freely, without fear. As cracks in the ice fortress widen and streams of love seep through every fissure, we arrive at the final phase, transformation. This is when the Ice Queen doesn't just thaw, she is reborn as her most vibrant, authentic, and courageous self. Melting does not diminish her strength. On the contrary, as thick layers of ice crumble and warm water floods her being, her core is revitalized with an unprecedented clarity and depth. She once believed softening, shedding her armor, signaled weakness. But in the moment, she allows her heart to pound with love. She discovers a miraculous power, the power of her true identity, unmasked and unguarded. The first revelation is this: she wasn't born to distance herself. She carried wounds that were too deep and too long unhealed. In this phase, whenever an emotion surges, rather than recoiling, she chooses to stay. She dares to feel each flutter, fear, or longing alike, and to name these sensations. She embraces pain as part of living, recognizing scars not as blemishes, but as badges of endurance, courage, and growth. When she stops running and starts feeling, genuine healing ignites. This is when the final shards of ice dissolve, making room for trust and hope. Her heart, once fragile, becomes resilient in a new way, not by standing still, but by embracing its capacity to change. She learns to ask, what is this feeling? Where does it come from? What does it tell me about myself? Instead of avoidance, she listens to her body's whispers, understanding each emotion as a vital message updating her inner map. This transformation also leads her to discover her self-worth. Previously, she calculated that revealing too much would lead to harm. Now she realizes that sharing her limits, needs, and boundaries honestly demonstrates self-respect and invites others to do the same. She no longer needs to prove independence by erecting emotional barricades. Instead, she stands firmly on emotional ground, knowing that both open gates and sturdy walls are necessary to balance love and security. In the end, this journey births a new version of the Ice Queen, no longer cold, yet still dignified. She carries a glass-like strength, delicate enough to feel deeply, yet strong enough not to shatter in adversity. She lives in dual seasons, fear entwined with hope, caution coupled with bravery, solitude mingled with the longing for connection. Melting is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of the next chapter. She learns to savor newfound joy, to accept sadness when it arrives, and to cherish every moment of being her authentic self. It is at this moment that the Ice Queen is truly free to love, to feel, and to live fully. Thank you so much for staying with me all the way to the end of this journey into the avoidant heart. Your willingness to explore these deeper layers of connection and vulnerability is the first step toward building the kind of relationships you truly deserve, ones rooted in authenticity, compassion, and mutual growth. I'd love to hear from you. What resonated most with your own experiences? Have you ever found yourself building emotional walls only to realize your heart was calling you back? Please share your thoughts, stories, or questions in the comments below. Your voice not only enriches this community, but also reminds each of us that we're not alone in our struggles and triumphs. If you found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss new insights, tools, and stories designed to help you grow more securely in your relationships and within yourself. Together, we'll continue to learn how to honor our emotions, set healthy boundaries, and embrace the bravery it takes to stay present. Remember, every step you take toward understanding and healing, no matter how small, is a victory. You are worthy of love that feels safe, respectful, and sustaining. Thank you again for being here, and I can't wait to walk alongside you on this journey toward a more connected, courageous, and joyful life. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.